Welcome to Talkin' Fly Guys with Travis. I'm your host, Travis Ballinghoff. This podcast, I will be bringing you guys my analysis and opinions on the Flyers, as well as providing some unique interviews. Betting expert Evan Bakota returns to the podcast and will join me later on in the episode. Well, my worst fear has come true. Last week I told you guys I was nervous that the Flyers' bad habits were going to catch up to them. That's exactly what has happened. The Flyers are currently on a 5-game losing streak, and they're second to last in the division. They're still not scoring any goals, and the team is still playing terrible defensively in their own zone. The goalies have not been able to bail them out as much as they were early in the year. Carter Hart struggled last game. That was probably his worst game of the season. Captain Claude Giroux only has 3 goals in his last 14 games. Coots only has 2 in his last 13. TK only 2 goals in his last 16 games. JVR 2 goals all season. Scotty Lawton only has 3 goals all season. Farabee 3 goals in his last 16 games, though it does look like he's starting to heat up. Hopefully that can cause a spark to the offense. Lindblom 0 goals all season. Keith Yandel doesn't have a single point in his last 16 games. I could keep going. I could keep going on and on here. My point is that it's not just 1 or 2 lines. It's not just one D pair struggling. It's the whole team that's struggling. I'm recording this Sunday afternoon. The Flyers play the Devils tonight. After that, they don't play until Wednesday. And then after that, they don't play until Saturday. So they have a lot of practice time ahead. And to me, that sounds like a perfect time to bring in a new coach. Last season, the Flyers had a terribly underachieving season. Probably the most disappointing season of my life. And it blew my mind that all the coaches got off with no punishment. Nobody lost their jobs, even though it was pretty obvious that there was a serious disconnect between the coaches and the players, and that the players gave up on the head coach. They run a 2-1-2 forechecking system, and the team really doesn't have the speed to do it well. Also, the power play has sucked ever since Vigneault and French Mike have came in, except for really a 2-month stretch before the pandemic when they had both TK and JVR net front. Why they haven't tried going back to that once, I don't know. It's time for both of these guys to get out of Philly. Former Flyer legend Rick Tocchet is available, who previously coached the Coyotes. To me, he's the perfect choice. He knows what it takes to succeed in Philly, and no players have ever said anything negative about him. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. I don't care how good your team is. You're not going to win a whole lot of games when the entire roster hates the head coach. But let's hop over to my interview with betting expert Evan Bakota. Joining me this week, we have a returning guest to the podcast, betting expert Evan Bakota. What's going on, Ev?
Oh, same stuff, different day.
Yeah, feel you. So, as you know, the Flyers are struggling as of late. How would you approach this as a gambler?
Well, you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it as right now they can't seem to do anything right. Or you can look at the other side of the coin and say, well, they're bound to bounce back at some point. I think a lot of their struggles are fixable. Maybe not immediately, but, I think they have probably more negative things than positive things going on right now. But I think you just kind of got to wait it out. Maybe pick your spots for a little while. See, what looks advantageous and what doesn't. But I'm not too concerned at the moment. I know a lot of Flyers fans probably feel differently. But yeah, no, I see a lot of signs that they can improve. There's areas that right now they are not exactly what you would say, I guess, top of the league.
Yeah.
They're not playing at the level that they were in the beginning of the year. But then again, like I said, I think there are some things that they can fix, and I think they can get back to that caliber of hockey.
So kind of like you just said, pick your spots. For the immediate future, would you just kind of fade them and not even look at their games, or do you see that as good value and maybe they kind of bounce back sooner rather than later?
I would like to think that they bounce back sooner rather than later, just because of the fact that their goaltending is just phenomenal. and a lot of that is not exactly Carter Hart or Martin Jones' fault. You can look at the defense in front of them. The fourth line has been dreadful. There's a lot of signs that point that it's not just one person's fault. It's a collective effort. So I think, like I said, you can pick your spots. I think there is value in those guys as underdogs, especially on the road. A lot of times, NHL teams that are slumping on the road, the market doesn't look at them in the best light, and I think that's wrong. I think a lot of sharps they look for that. They look for teams that are undervalued, especially on the road, like I said. So we'll see. I think that they can turn it around soon. I think they have a good future going forward. So I would not totally write them off, but just be careful when you do take them. And also look at totals, too. You can look at over-unders. Actually, unders have been a pretty decent proposition for them. I think they're 11-8 on the year. When the defense is doing what they should, a lot of those games have gone under, surprisingly, and the Flyers do win. So I think in that respect, I don't think it's a team you can totally fade right now.
Yeah, that was kind of leading into my next question. Would you just hammer the under until they get this goal scoring thing figured out?
Is Carter Hart in net? No, I think that I don't think you can just blindly hammer unders. Usually I wouldn't. If it's 5.5, I usually look for a flat 6. That way, if you do get to that, you can get pushes out of it. Sometimes the best bet is a push because it could be better or worse. But no, I think right now, looking at totals, again, you gotta look at who they're playing too, right? And if you're playing a team, look at the game against Carolina. That game was 6-3. So I mean, and you have a lot of 2-1s in there. There's a lot of it's a mixed bag. Obviously, before you ever make a total bet, number one, look at who's starting in net for each team. Whatever you're betting on, money line, puck line, total. Always look at who's in net and who's playing, who's out, because that's important information in deciding what factors into what you want to put your money on. I wouldn't just say throw money blindly on. I think this is going to happen. Do a little bit of research, look into it. But I think the Flyers and unders have been fairly profitable this year. So that's something I would look at for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see Scotty Lawton kind of heating up as of late. Same with Joel Farabee. Is there any specific player props that you like, or maybe some futures for the team as a whole down the line?
I think in games, you have to look at a couple guys like Giroux, Konechny. We were talking how that right now they're sitting at 2-3 goals after 15 games.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna come back to I guess come up from where they are now. They can't be as inefficient as they are right now. I think you see those totals go up. I think if you can find some of those to score goal props, point props, if you can find them at good values, I would take them, because chances are when the team bounces back, those guys will also bounce back, and you might even get a better return just taking the player prop as opposed to just taking sides in a game. We did take Carter Hart to win the Vezina a little while ago. See how that pans out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't think it's necessarily Carter Hart's fault. I think he's still an elite goalie, or at least from what he's shown this year. So in that respect, I would say for a season-long future, I still think the Flyers can make the playoffs. I think the pieces are there. You just got to figure some stuff out. This is a little bit of a lull. You don't like to have these early in the year, but you also saw what they can do. Once the season started, those first couple games, you saw the peak potential of what they can do. Now you're seeing the valley per se, as opposed to the peak. You're seeing the worst of this team. So I think they do regress to the mean. Playoff props, if you can get them at a better line than they were at the beginning of the year, I'm not afraid of taking that. Carter Hart to win the Vezina. If they do turn it around, I think he's right back in that conversation. And I think he still is, even with the struggles on the defensive end right now.
Yeah, they got some practice time coming up, and after that they have a bit of an easier schedule, so hopefully they can figure things out here sooner rather than later. Thanks for joining me this week, Ev, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, no problem. Hope to be back on with a little bit more of an update sooner rather than later.
Big thank you to Evan for joining me. You can follow him on Twitter at @SJerseySharp. You can shoot me a follow too at TravyBallin26. Wherever you are listening, please like, comment, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. And make sure you check out next week's episode for more analysis on the Flyers and another interview. This episode was produced, written, and edited by me, and I'll talk to you next week. Go Flyers!